right, you are up in 5, 4, 3, 2. You're up.
Hello, welcome to Visual Radio. It is the 17th of November, 2011. I am knee-deep in the Iron Man book by Tony Iommi. My journey through heaven and hell with Black Sabbath. Clever, because he was forced to call the band Heaven and Hell, right? When Ronnie James, the late Ronnie James Dio. Oh, I guess I got to start off tonight. I mean, it's one of those weeks, people. Moogie Klingman, dear friend of mine, guest on Visual Radio. Moogie Klingman passed away 2 nights ago, Tuesday night. Todd Rundgren reunited with him. They were in Utopia together. And we were trying to get Moogie on the show for the past year, and he just couldn't do it. He wasn't feeling good. Just another friend. We lost Karen Deal on the 19th of November last year. Karen's father's going to call in tonight. Arch Deal, he has a new book out. So my friend Karen was on the show with us on the soapbox with Joe and I. And we cherished that tape. It's up on YouTube. But it's been a trying couple of years as far as friends of ours just passing on. Sylvia Robinson was a dear friend of my good friend Bobby Hebb. We lost Bobby in August of 2010. Sylvia died, I think, September 28th of this year. You may remember the song Pillow Talk. As big as it was, and it went to #1, Love is Strange was her signature tune with Mickey and Sylvia. So let's talk about more pleasant things, and we'll dedicate tonight's show to our fallen friends. The late Jimmy Miller, the late Sylvia Robinson, the late Moogie Klingman. I hate saying that. These are wonderful people and friends, and you know, you got to have friends. Moogie co-wrote that tune, and I've got him on tape singing it. And life is just fleeting. Life is fleeting. I still have to review True Grit. We had Joe LaRocca on here talking about it. I got a new DVD in the mail that I'm very excited about. Looking Fine on Television, The New York Dolls, films by Nadia and Bob Gruen. Now this should be fascinating. So, The New York Dolls, I saw them March 1st, 1973 at a club called Katie's, which is now like Bertucci's. And, hold on. Hello. Hey, Arch, our number is 781 721 0137. Thank you. And Arch Deal will call in any second. That may be unprofessional, but you know, hey, I'm running the show myself tonight. Kevin's not here. Jeff isn't here. Hey, Joe, can you shut the doors? Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Welcome to Visual Radio.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Hey, Arch, how are you? Oh, hold on. Joe, could you check the audio?
Hi.
Thanks.
How to say something on the phone?
Hey, Arch, good to hear you, man.
Thanks. Good to talk with you. It's cooling down just a little bit. It got down in the low 80s today.
The low 80s. Oh, well, it's going to plummet. Right. It's going to plummet here in Boston.
I have to get the jackets out and the sweaters.
Oh, yeah. The low 80s, did you say?
Right.
Oh, man. No, I just went out to my car up here without my suit jacket on, and it's starting to get very chilly. We've had a nice 4 days, you know. It's been very mild here.
Yes. We finally got a little tiny bit of rain today, and a cold front is coming through, so it'll cool down. I think in the maybe the mid-70s tomorrow.
So Arch Deal.
That's why I live here.
When did you start in broadcasting, Arch?
Actually, I started in broadcasting. I think one of the things is when I was a kid, you know, and a guy came up to me. I was actually in radio and building and tearing up radio and TV sets and everything. And I was interested in this, and the guy said, "Hey, I do the public address system at the ballpark, and I need somebody to run the equipment for me, keep it running." So he hired me for that, and he had a beautiful girl that would go with him to the games. And suddenly one night, about the 7th inning, he said, "Arch, take over."
Whoa.
Take over. I could not roll my R's. The teachers thought it was cute. Instead of 3, I'd say free. 33, of course, was free. And the third baseman, stuff like that. I'd say, me take over. So it kept happening about the 7th inning every night. He'd say, take over. He and his girlfriend would leave. I couldn't figure out what was happening. And one night, we had some equipment problem. And I crawled down under the table where they are trying to track down the cables. And I noticed her hand was on his thigh. Every inning, the hand got higher. The 7th inning, Arch, take over. If they could have waited till the game was over, I may never have been in broadcasting.
And how old were you, sir?
Oh, I was actually in the very early teens, probably 17 at that time.
So you were old enough to know what was going on.
Yes, I knew what was going on. I was just jealous. But he got me to the side and said, hey, you're not rolling your R's. You need to practice that. Well, apparently my teachers thought it was cute. They never worked on it. And in just a few minutes and a few hours, he had me rolling my R's. So a year later, he got a better job, and he turned this over to me, and I started doing that. Then I started going into broadcasting. I had the idea of getting to a radio station. Back at that time, way before tape recorders, we had wire recorders. And if your wire ever got tangled up, throw it away and start over. But I started practicing on wire recorders and trying to emulate the sound of a newscaster. Pretty poor, as a matter of fact. I went to one station, and the manager gave me a news copy. He said, let's do this as a newscast. I did it. He came back, and he played it in front of me, so I sort of crawled out, hanging my head, I never saw him again, at least in broadcasting.
Wow.
But I practiced and practiced and practiced. One of the first things I had to do, Joe, is get rid of my southern accent. And say, I was born in Hickory, North Carolina, don't you know? So I had to get rid of that, and they wanted no accent at all. So I worked on it for years and years, finally got a job at a radio station. And from there I advanced to television, which was really quite interesting. In television I did everything, from mopping the floors and doing the camera work, doing the audio cues, working the control board, just about everything, and doing news, weather, and sports. And that moved from one place to the other. I was doing that in a little station at Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Winston-Salem.
Yeah, that's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
And how old were you about then?
That time I advanced to about 20 at the time.
Oh, so you're on TV at 20 years of age. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, well, I was working. I was determined then I wanted to be a newscaster of sorts. So I worked on that, and then a station manager from Florida happened to see me doing the news, and he talked me into coming to Tampa, being the major newscaster down here, and that continued for 30 years, doing the news. I did the 6 o'clock and the 11 o'clock on the NBC affiliate in Tampa, St. Petersburg. And it was very thrilling. With that, I got to do some of the most interesting things. And, in television, in a media business, you get to meet all these great personalities. Of course, my daughter was one of them. That was Karen, of course, married to Marty Ballin, and she performed tremendously, a great keyboard artist. I got to meet all the people in the rock and roll and things of that sort, but one of the real thrills, I found that John F. Kennedy was coming to Tampa, and I assigned myself, being Air Force, I assigned myself to meet him at the Air Force Base. I arrived early, and he arrived early. He got out of the limousine.
Wow.
Didn't see a Secret Service man anywhere around, and he walked up to me and he said, nice day. Yes, Mr. President, nice day. He said, hey, I'm 30 minutes early. You want to sit down and chat? So we sat down, just side by side, like you sit and have a cold beer or something, and chatted for about 30 minutes, just real small talk. He said, you get the serious stuff, we'll do a news conference right after the speech you were going to make. And 4 days later, of course, was the assassination in Dallas. So that was something that left a great impression on my mind. And we were on the air continuously for quite a while, as many of the stations when that happened.
That's impressive, man. Bill Clinton's coming to town on Monday. You think I should go and get an interview?
I think you should, absolutely.
I have no idea if
Are you going to wear a skirt?
now stop that. Stop that. I know that Saturday is the anniversary of your daughter's passing, and I'm sorry, Arch.
Yes, that's a very grim time. Something no parent should ever have to face. And that, as a matter of fact, I've been working on a book for a long while. And I called the book The Corporate Fall Guy because for 10 years I was Miller Brewing Company's corporate fall guy, along with people like Don Madden and Bob Euchre and all those great people. And I was the guy that did all the skydiving, ergo the fall guy. But it's not a pun against Miller. It was a real tribute. It's the best job I ever had in my life, including being a television anchor. And that inspired me. You know, Karen would say, go ahead and do it. And, you know, I've been able to, in the past, speak to 1 million people and feel very comfortable with that. And the most difficult thing I ever had to do in my entire life was speak at her service. But then again, Karen was sort of your, she'd say, hey, Dad, you can do it. I expect you to.
Well, it's a testament, Arch, that I miss her terribly. And
Absolutely, every single day.
You know, and
a loss that no parent should ever have to go through. Really.
No, and she would call me almost every night, you know. So we became fast buddies on the phone. Although I've known her for 20 years, you know, or so.
I know she was very made many great comments about you, Joe. She constantly talked about good old Joe.
You know, I lost another keyboard player friend 2 nights ago. You know the Bette Midler song, You Got to Have Friends?
Yeah, absolutely.
Moogie Klingman, the founding member of Utopia, passed on 2 nights ago.
I'll be darned.
And he was a dear friend, and I wanted him back on the show, and he just said, Joe, I can't do it. He was gigging, Arch. He was out gigging. He actually had a tour itinerary set up for next month. But he couldn't do the phone call. He would just get on stage, and if you look at YouTube, he looked very, very different. And so losing people that we care about and these great musicians, it pains me. But, you know, we have to celebrate their lives. And so let's celebrate Karen and Moogie and these great keyboard players. And I thank you for bringing her into the world.
Oh,
you know?
Real pleasure, of course, and she was such a great pleasure and so accomplished. Her music was fantastic.
Well, she was a very skilled keyboard.
Is not really musically inclined, I guess. I'm
Hmm?
probably the only one in the family that's not musically inclined.
I know your son Doug is a guitar player.
Roll singing, right? You know, her brother Doug is doing some rock and roll singing.
Doug is a guitar. Is he just a singer, or is he a guitar player too?
No, he's really a singer.
Okay.
He's a screamer on the stage. And I have a granddaughter who has a absolutely fantastic voice. She did a service that it was actually a tribute to Karen at the Skipper's Lounge in Tampa.
Where Karen played last year.
Yes, she did. And this tribute to her, my granddaughter got up and she wrote a song for Karen. She got up there and she had a standing ovation, and what a fabulous voice.
How old is she?
She's a little over 25. Marvelous voice.
Is she Doug's daughter?
Kristen. I beg your pardon?
Is she Doug's daughter?
No, that is Diane's daughter. Karen was my first daughter. Diane was number 2. And then Doug was number 3. And Sherry was number 4. And would you believe I have a 20-year-old who is now a Gator at junior college, at Florida State. Well, I better correct that. University of Florida. They're real sharp competitors.
Interesting. So does she go to the radio station and play Doug's music?
Yes.
Aha. I knew that. No, I didn't know it, but that's cool. College radio is so important, Arch.
Yeah, it is. You know, we've lost some of the touch there. I'm old enough to remember the early days when we together around the radio station on a Sunday night, and the memory would take over then because you have to visualize everything. There are no picture tubes to tell you everything.
You know, I bought a Shirley Bassey album for my roommate. It was his birthday, November 8th, okay? So we went to dinner last night, and we played Shirley Bassey in the car, and when we got home, I said, isn't it amazing no radio stations are playing this great music? You know, a great songstress like Shirley Bassey, who can take a tune, anyone's tune, and just turn it into magic. And why isn't middle-of-the-road radio playing Shirley? Why isn't pop radio playing Goldfinger? It's a timeless song.
That's so many great things out there. I even heard just the other day that television is trying to bring back the Monsters. It should be really scarier than it used to be. It was more of a comedy than anything at that time.
It will have to be a little more dark to work.
A little more action, and of course a lot of special effects will be in the new one, I'm sure. So that's part of all the things right now.
While I'm on my complaint trip, check this out, Arch. Diamonds Are Forever, the James Bond movie,
right,
came on the Spanish channel. So I said, okay, I want to hear Shirley sing the tune. They played an instrumental, and you see, you know, vocal by Shirley Bassey, but there's no vocal. And I said, Jeff, this is a travesty. How can you have a James Bond movie and they pull her voice out because she's singing in English?
Oh, gee.
They put the instrumental on the Spanish version. I mean, you know, I don't care what language it's in, play her.
Right.
What's wrong with this picture, Arch?
There's something wrong with that because most of my Spanish friends speak wonderful English.
Of course.
And if I talk to them in Spanish, they prefer English.
And I'm tuning into the movie just to hear the theme song. And it's absent. And I'm like shocked. But, you know, someone said Shirley Bassey should have sung every single James Bond theme.
Oh, she was fantastic. No question about that.
She still is today.
I beg your pardon?
They made her a dame. She's Dame Shirley Bassey now.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's a real honor in the British. Would you believe I still do narrations for the Leeds Theatre in England?
I did not know that.
One of the things I do narrations nationwide, and Leeds Theatre, I got a tie into that because you see they have too many British voices over there, you know. They wanted a stateside voice, so I give them a stateside narration.
Now, do you do it on an ISDN line at a studio?
No, I actually do it on a line in an MP3, and I just MP3 it over on the line.
But of course, it's the wave of the future, isn't it?
Oh, fantastic, so easy, and they owe me a few pints of stout over there. I'll have to go collect.
Now, Arch, you sent me your book. You sent me, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, very good.
You sent the book. When did you start writing your book, and when was it published?
Well, it was only published a little over about 3 months ago. Finally got it published, and I've been writing it a long time. I give credit to Richard Bach. Richard and I doubled in together. We went out and did dog fights together in separate planes, with imaginary guns, trying to shoot each other down. We skydived together all over the place. And I tell him, I give credit to my friend in the sky, Richard Bach, for giving me the desire to write. Unfortunately, he's not giving his great talent. So it was a long time in writing it, but then after Karen passed, I said, I've got to finish this, and the last chapter is a tribute to my daughter Karen. And it happened, the last picture in the whole book, actually, Marty and Karen were performing in San Diego, one of 12 jumps I made into the San Diego Stadium. And this one time I landed right in the middle of the field, and she ran out on the field, greeted me. I had a big bundle of nylon in my hands, and someone got a picture of us together standing in the middle of the San Diego Stadium. And that's one of the real fond pictures together like that. So it was a great experience there, and going all over. And she, I think I'd performed at the Fresno before, and she was up there for that one too. We traveled around quite a bit. Of course, Marty was quite often in California. I found myself in California almost every weekend skydiving in either the LA Coliseum or of course, the Rose Bowl, the different stadiums around there, even the old stadium in Oakland, which was easier to get into than the one at Candlestick. Candlestick was really a piece of work getting there and then live through it. But we did it. That was the important thing.
Now, Arch, Ian Hunter has a song, Once Bitten, Twice Shy. If someone has a malfunction with their parachute, why would they get the urge to go skydiving again?
You know, it's sort of like they're saying, get back up on the horse if it throws you off. I had that feeling, you know, after I fell 3,000 feet without a parachute, all of them totally failed. I went into the ground. People always ask me, what was on your mind on the way down? I said, well, besides fast prayers, number one, if I don't get one of these parachutes open, I'm going to die. And number two, how much is that going to hurt?
Yikes.
I can tell you, 3,000 feet of fall does not hurt. It's that sudden stop that hurts. But I never lost consciousness. I stayed there, and it took about 30 minutes for them to find the body. I was still conscious.
Oh, man.
I decided then, you know, I never lost consciousness until they got me to the hospital and fed me some strong drugs, and that was night time then. And actually, I went back to work 3 months after I hit the ground with a broken neck, a broken back, broken ribs, and pelvis. And, you know, I was feeling bad, but people say, hey, Joe, how are you? What do they want to hear? Wonderful, fantastic, outstanding. Nobody wants to hear your complaints. So I went back, and people said, finally, they began to say, you're going to skydive again? And I played the part of General Douglas MacArthur. I shall return, you know.
Wow.
And I determined I'm going to go back to the minute, exactly 1 year from the time I hit the ground in Cypress Gardens. I'm going to go back and jump again. So I spread the word on that, and all the news media gathered for that. All the television news media, the radio stations, newspapers and all, they're all there to watch a good jump. Oh, come on, Joe, you know better than that. I disappointed all of them. The chute opened, I landed safely, and it launched a new career for me.
Yeah, I know there were a lot of psychiatrists wanting to talk to this crazy guy who did it again.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing about it. A lot of people say, after what happened to you, you're still skydiving? I said, yes, of course. Sometimes they'll say, you should see a psychiatrist. I said, oh, I do. He jumps with me.
Oh, my God.
That's a fact. I have a psychiatrist, a very good friend of mine. We made hundreds of jumps together. Matter of fact, I saw him this weekend skydiving at Skydive City. Dr. Stephen Groff, a great skydiver, a great pilot. And I told him, after many years of doing this, I told him I'd been using that story of telling him about and then I told him, I said, you know, you're the only skydiver I know who tries to drag a couch onto the airplane.
Well, I was going to say, instead of the psychiatrist couch, you just float on the clouds.
There you go.
Do you communicate with him with walkie-talkie, or?
No, I do a wireless microphone, and so when I'm in free fall, it's too noisy in free fall because you're falling at least 120 miles an hour.
Oh, my God.
When the parachute opens, then I start narrating. The wireless microphone goes to the public address system on the ground in the stadium, and I talk to everybody on the way down. And it's very interesting. Talk to them, you know, and gives me something to do on the way down. Like Mile High Stadium in Denver. I had 12 stand-ups in that stadium, and it's, of course, you're laying at a mile high. And it did sting my heel one time, but hey, I stood it up every time. That's what counted.
You hit your heel on what? On a stand-up?
Yeah, just stand up. I hit a little hard, but I was able to walk off. The most difficult thing, Joe, after that, I grabbed up the parachute. There's a huge bundle of nylon in my hands, and then I climbed the steps. And anyone who's been to the old Mile High Stadium in Denver know the steps are the steepest in the world. So I'm climbing those steps and high-fiving people all the way to the top. When I get to the top, I am dead tired. Absolutely. But I did that 12 times, and I loved it because it was difficult, and, you know, you do something extremely difficult, and it comes out good. You feel very good about that.
So if you were at Candlestick Park, how high is the
Yes.
plane going up at Candlestick Park?
Well, at Candlestick Park, we went up actually not over about 5,000 feet because I wanted to open the parachute by no later than 2,000 feet.
Okay.
Where you should be as an expert. Then steer yourself in, and over the Candlestick, I opened out over the bay, and when I was flying along, the bay looked nice and calm, and when I was actually the Pacific there, it looked calm, and after the parachute's open, I'm flying back toward the Candlestick, and I see white caps starting to form, more and more and more. They began multiplying. I said, oh, wow. So I had to turn around and got in toward the stadium, had to do a hook turn, drive back into the wind, and land, and then jettison the parachute.
Was it like a hurricane?
No, but it was, you can only jump in winds of 12 knots, really. That's the legal amount, which is just about 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
But coming off of the Pacific there, that was over 30 miles an hour. So you could be backing up 10 miles an hour landing, which is not a pleasant sight. And nothing you're proud of. Being dragged backwards, you're not proud of that either. So when I touched down, I immediately jettisoned the parachute. It flew away, landed by itself, and I was still standing there. So that worked out very well.
And the reason I asked you Candlestick was when you said Mile High Stadium, is the air thinner at Mile High if you're up 5,000 feet than Candlestick?
Oh, yeah, it is very high because we'd go out there over a mile above the stadium, and so it's already a mile high, so we're over 2 miles high when we leave the airplane, and about 2.5 miles actually, so you're falling much faster because the air is so thin. And amazingly, people don't realize, they think in thin air your parachute's going to open, slow and softly. Wrong. Because of thin air, you're falling so fast, it opens really sharp, a real hard, fast opening, which is good. It's better than no opening at all. And we fly around and land in there, and I love jumping really in Mile High more than any other place, I think, because it's so difficult, and made it in every time, and the people really cheer when you land standing up like that. They boo if you don't.
And they know how difficult it is being Mile High Stadium.
Yeah, they can't believe, some people, if you got it just right, you flare it just right, you can do a 1-foot tiptoe landing.
Man.
And people can't believe you do it. How can you be that strong? Well, it's technique. When the jetliner starts coming in for a landing, the nose goes up, they start trading off forward speed to generate some lift and touch down softly. Otherwise, it'd slam right in and break the landing gear off. That makes quite a difference. So if you can do a real good landing, you feel good about that. Much better.
Arch, how many jumps do you think you've made in your life?
They're all logged. Every one I make logs, it has to be signed off by a licensed pilot or a licensed jumper. So I have over 6,000 jumps right now.
6,000?
Oh, I have a lot of friends who have over 10,000. And there's a guy on the east coast of Florida. A year ago, this guy had 50,000 jumps. He worked for a parachute company.
I thought 550 TV shows was a lot. Man.
I'll never catch up with him, that's for sure.
Man.
I went out one day and I made 50 jumps in one day. And actually, that was not difficult. I planned it ahead. This whole organization had people packing the chutes for me. I figured it was taking me 2 minutes to get to altitude at 2,500 feet, 2 minutes to get down on the ground, and then 2 minutes and 20 seconds to get back into the airplane again. And so it's about every 6 minutes and 20 seconds I went out the door of the airplane.
Now, Arch, I went up to Maine about 2 years ago, and for old time's sake, I got on the roller coaster, okay? And I hadn't been on a roller coaster since I was in my 20s, right?
Right.
And I realized it wasn't as much fun for a guy in his 50s as it was when I was in my 20s. You know, it just wasn't fun. Do you enjoy all 50 jumps in one day?
No, that gets to be a little work.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
If you have a malfunction, that sharpens you up a little bit. I did not have one at that time. But I will say I got to 50 jumps, and I planned to do it, and I did it in a record area. But then again, I had a record for a while. And as a a matter of fact, just a couple of years ago, a former member of the Golden Knights, I think his name is Jay Stokes, I hope I got it right. He went out and made 500 jumps in one 24-hour period.
Okay, I mean, you know.
After the last jump, he said, I'm a little tired.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would never top that. Incidentally, that got me a shot, though, on the old Gary Moore show, To Tell the Truth.
Yep.
And visiting on that, it's interesting. If you look at that show, you're talking about losing some great musicians. And you look at that show, everybody on that show is dead except Joe Garagiola and me. And, of course, by two stand-ins, I came out and I said, my name is Arch Deal, and two imposters said, my name is Arch Deal, and so on that. I guess those two guys are still alive, but the rest of the entire cast is gone except Joe Garagiola and me.
Well, if you look on the web today, there's only 3 Munchkins left from The Wizard of Oz. We lost the trumpeter, the first Munchkin.
Carl Slover. Carl Slover.
Yep.
I had the pleasure of interviewing him on the radio.
You did.
And the little guy, he was fantastic. And I took him out afterwards for ice cream. He loved ice cream. And I asked him all about The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland, Ray Bolger, and all those people. He said they were wonderful. They were so nice, just wonderful people. He said, but the stand-ins were awful. They were the wannabes. So, of course, I asked him, did you get to pet Toto? Oh, no. They did not want us touching the dog. The dog was trained, and the dog trainer was afraid he might lose his spot on the show if the dog got distracted somehow. But that was quite an experience. They had them all put in one hotel, hidden away while they did all of this.
Was it on TV or radio?
It was on radio when I talked with him. Wonderful little guy, and a fantastic person, and they loved his ice cream. He remained a bachelor all of his life.
Ah.
Yeah.
Now, what year?
Yeah, I guess.
Huh?
Smarter than me.
Now, what year was that?
Oh, I talked with him. It had to be, it was a good 7 years ago I talked with him.
Now, Arch, do you keep all your radio shows?
Unfortunately, I did not. A lot of the shows I had, like the interview with John F. Kennedy, things like that, that was all videoed. And, the old film, I say videoed, it was all on 16mm film. If you have 16mm film, Hollywood found out a long time ago that it has to regularly be washed and waxed, or else all the chemicals in it will self-destruct.
Oh.
And they threw out a whole lot of that stuff. As a matter of fact, I did a documentary on NATO, and a full 1-hour documentary I did on NATO, traveling all over the NATO countries by myself, hauling all the gear around and doing the talk-ups and everything. Put the whole show together, and they gave it, years later, they had it in a can, and they gave me that can. I put the can inside my car. I think I got a cup of coffee or something. I came back to the car, and I happened to open the can. I was lucky to get out of the car in time. I would have instantly been asphyxiated by the gases in that can.
Now, you couldn't bake it because they bake tape and film these days.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to put it on tape or on disc, well, they could put it on a DVD or something like that. But it seems like all the stations right now are just going to back up with memory, the whole thing, on a big memory disc.
Well, now, our show tonight, we usually go on tape and we go on to the server, and we're just going directly to the server because our studio is renovating.
Right.
So, usually it goes right to the server. Karen was interviewed last year, so we have that. I have it up on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, I have. I really enjoyed that tremendously.
I enjoyed her so much. And that's what I love about the show is we have our instant replay, and people all over the world can explore these shows any time of the day. Just going to YouTube.
It's so wonderful, As a matter of fact, I don't know if you even remember it. I don't know if you even saw a wire recorder. You ever see one, Joe?
Wire recorder? I don't think so.
Dates me. Okay, Webcor made a recorder, and it was a wire recorder. It worked exactly the same way as a tape recorder. Instead of a piece of tape passing over the recording head, this thin iron wire is passing over the head, because the quality was pretty bad.
Oh.
But it worked the same way. But if you ever had fishing line tangled, you could untangle it, which is a mess. If this ever got tangled up, throw it away. You'll never get it untangled. Because this thin wire, it's just about as thin as a hair. And when it gets tangled, forget it. You just get another one, start over again. So that's how I started out that long ago, which really dates me. And then Brush Company started putting up recording studios across America, where people go in and sing or something like that. I would take my news copy, produce a newscast, and I'd go in and do a newscast, do my David Brinkley thing or something like that. You got to give credit to Walter Cronkite. I was doing one of the space shots at Cape Canaveral. I went off to myself to do my talk-up. I was standing in this place in a little shed saying, "Hi, this is Art Steele reporting from Cape Canaveral, where tomorrow suddenly I hear zip, 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 zip." I turned around and I go, "Sorry to bother you. I'm Walter Cronkite. I'm taking some pictures for my children." And we sat and chatted there for a few minutes, and he went on his way. And years later, my weatherman left and went to WCBS in New York. I went to visit him a couple years later. We're walking around, he's showing me WCBS studios. He said, "Oh, there's Mr. Cronkite. I've got to introduce you to Walter Cronkite." He walked up and said, "Walter, I want to introduce Walter to you." I said, "Oh, I know, Arch. We met at Cape Canaveral." An amazing memory this man had. It wasn't me. He remembered who he met and where he met him. It was incredible.
Well, that's why he was such a pro.
Absolutely. Wish you could do half the memory of that. Really.
Now,
Fantastic.
what ear checks do you have of your shows that are significant?
I do have some. As a matter of fact, I saved the old tape. It was on a Sony. As a matter of fact, when I went back and did that jump again, and at Cypress Gardens, as a matter of fact, I let a newsman from the competing station, the CBS station, I was with NBC, go and he asked if they could come on board the plane and get me going out of the door. I said, "Sure." So I went up there, and that evening I watched the newscast on the CBS station. This guy said, "Art Steele was absolutely calm, cool, and collected when he crawled out of the airplane." I thought, boy, I sure fooled him. But the day, 1 year after the big bounce, I was anything but cool, calm, and collected. It's something I felt I had to do. And it led to a wonderful job with Miller Brewing Company, and they had me traveling all over the world. Would you believe, Joe, I have made 61 cruises. They spoiled me rottenly. Of course, I flew everything first class and have a limo to haul me around.
But
And
then
I paid for that, too.
you skydive onto the ships?
I did. I skydived onto the Norway. And as a matter of fact, the captain said, "We'll be underway when you skydive." No, Captain. You're the captain. But if you're skydiving, in fact, if you're underway, that ship can go 20 knots, I know. And the wind coming across from Miami was blowing about 20 knots, so I was going to be in the screws. So anyway, I said, "Look, as soon as I touch down, you drop the lines and take off. You drop the lines as soon as I touch down, full steam ahead." It was actually a steamship. And so it worked out very well. But Jane Pauley was on board, and the most amazing thing, I was neutral about Jane Pauley, but when I landed, she ran up to me and grabbed my hand and held onto my hand and did an interview with me. And 5 minutes later, she's still holding my hand. She knew how to get a captive audience. So I had to give her credit for that.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Now,
I have jumped all over the Caribbean also.
so have you gone around the whole world jumping?
All around, well, around the world. I haven't jumped at all the places. One of the wildest jumps was in Red Square in Moscow, which was scary because suppose one of the soldiers didn't get the word that this is legal.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out well, and I did get perforated on the way down, but it was interesting. I'd like to jump at different places. I, of course, was tied in and made many trips to England. I never jumped in England. Of course, I was under contract with the Miller Brewing Company, and they said, you'll never be able to jump here, but I made quite a few jumps in Milwaukee, in the fields there and everything, for big shows they had there, and got down safely, had a great time. Not in the winter, though.
Uh-huh.
Did jump over Houghton Lake, Michigan, the coldest I've ever been all my life. They sent me there to jump up the Tip of Town Festival and land on the frozen lake. And on the way down, we figured it was 50 below zero, and I'm falling 120 miles an hour. I opened the parachute early. I was freezing to death. I looked like I had a heavy sunburn when I got down.
Now,
So that was the coldest ever.
this is a serious question. In all these jumps, have birds ever get caught in your parachute?
No, they haven't. Actually, you know, I fly, actually when I come down, I have run across before. I say run across, I didn't run into them. But I have, as if you're a glider pilot, you know, I'm a commercial pilot as well. Glider pilots look for buzzards. And I kidded Richard Bach. I said, you know, you did Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but you should do a story on the Bernard B. buzzard, because you find buzzards, they are soaring and riding the updrafts. They find the updrafts, they'll soar for hours just riding those updrafts. Glider pilots, if they see buzzards, they'll head for them, because the buzzards know where the updrafts are.
Oh.
I have in parachutes, when the parachute's open, I have flown, within just maybe 25, 30 yards away from a buzzard.
Now, a buzzard won't come after you, will they?
Oh, no, they don't want me. I'm not dead yet. They're vultures. They only want the dead meat, the well-done meat.
Right, right.
They do a good job of cleaning up, I'll say that.
Okay. All right, so you're lucky that they weren't around when you had your malfunction.
Yeah, they probably have been hanging in the top of the tree, said, okay, he's not quite dead yet, let's wait a while later.
They do wait till the end, right?
Yeah, they can spot this, and of course they have a tremendous sense of smell, and it wafts up, you know, and when they find one, they begin to gather. I've always found that soon. They love to fly because I found them over downtown Tampa, Florida, circling overhead. There's no way in the world they're going to land on a busy street in downtown Tampa. So they're enjoying the thermals coming up over the city. That's why I told Richard he should do a Bernard B. buzzard instead of Jonathan Livingston Seagull. But he's been a marvelous rider and a lot of fun to skydive and fly with him. Tremendous gentleman, really.
Fascinating stuff, Art. So the book has been out for 3 months. Have you done any interviews yet besides this?
A lot of interviews, a lot of book signings and everything. We're going to do one on the ship coming up here on the Allure of the Seas on the 25th of February. And also the 4th of February, I'm lecturing at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And have not been invited to the University of Florida yet, where my daughter is a junior. I'm looking forward to that if I can ever get that. And we're doing a lot of lectures and a lot of things. And of course, I had doctors before want me to talk to some of their patients. You know, I was very fortunate with all the broken bones and everything to continue everything. Not only back to skydiving, but I do competitive ballroom dancing too. Not enough to go on Dancing with the Stars for sure, but a lot of fun. I say it's the greatest exercise in the world because you're exercising and you're having fun at the same time.
Arch, what's your webpage?
My webpage is www.corporatefallguy.com. That's one word.
Great.
Fall Guy.
Corporate Fall Guy.
Go on there. Number one, you go on there and it starts out with a narration, me studying about the Hillsborough River in Tampa, telling this is my city, this is my story and stuff like that. You get to get my ugly face there. And then also you can go in and you can get, I mentioned the Gary Moore to Tell the Truth. That actual video's on there, minus the commercials.
Oh, wow, so you got the Gary Moore to Tell the Truth on the website.
That's right. It is on there.
I didn't see that. I'll have to go back now and look.
I go there to tell the truth, and also it's got some of my skydiving scenes in there. I went out with a few of my friends and did a little skydive. And then, of course, anybody who wants to order the book.
Well, you know, we're non-commercial, so I often talk over my guests, and pardon me, I'm not being rude.
Oh, no, that's all
You
right.
get it. But the website is, again, corporatefallguy.com.
That's correct.
And are there outtakes from the book there?
Yes, as a matter of fact, quite a bit. There's a lot of pictures on there. And some of our big skydive scenes, we have one which me and about 50 or 70 of my friends get together and do a skydive, a sequel thing. And a lot of the pictures you see in the book, and also we did we formed what we call the six-pack in the sky for Miller Brewing Company.
Oh, what a great idea.
Would stack the parachutes, would have 2 Miller Genuine Draft, 2 Miller High Life, 2 Miller light beer from Miller, and all that. I was real lightweight. And I kid people, I started first with Anheuser-Busch, and I saw the light beer from Miller. I had a wonderful experience of 10 years with the Miller Brewing Company. Another one of the crazy people, I was on the outside, you know, with the skydiving. Another one of them is Corky Carroll, who was 4-time world surfing champion. And of course, we had Mickey Spillane, the great mystery writer. We lost it a couple of years ago.
Terrific writer. Mike Hammer.
Mike Hammer. You know, he wrote Eye of the Jury in 4 days on a standard typewriter.
Amazing. It must have been mania.
Absolutely.
Inspired mania. Arch, we're running out of time. You got to come up to Boston so we can have you in the studio proper.
I would love to. I had skydived in Boston at Boston College by the river there. Did a long time ago, one of the USFL games, and I skydived into that stadium there.
Our own Joe LaRocca, who set everything up for us, is an alum of BC.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm skydived for them any time at all. I've skydived into the Meadowlands, and that's like going down a chimney. And in New York, actually at the over in the big county fair they had over there, and that was a lot of fun. That was the biggest thing other than the greased pig chase. Had a lot of fun.
Wow, Arch Deal, corporatefallguy.com. Thank you so much for being on Visual Radio tonight.
Joe, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to seeing you real soon.
It's been a real honor for me, man.
My pleasure.
Okay, talk soon. Bye.
Bye.
Arch Deal, corporatefallguy.com. Wow, what great stories. We just get stories from people from all walks of life. It's just pretty amazing.